Waiting was tormenting, painful, destructive, like death from a blunt stabbing knife. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months, crawling over the pack ice like a slug over a street. The horizon was as empty as the rock where the penguins had been. The birds had migrated when winter came. They never stopped hoping. They never stopped believing that a ship would appear beyond the waves, steered by Shackleton himself. To say that the Caird had perished was forbidden. Nobody even dared thinking it. And many dark nights they dreamt of which ship it would be. Uninterrupted the gales roared over the God-forsaken island and swept away every memory of safety. They had no drinking water, and they ran out of food. The torn clothes couldn't warm them, and the tattered tents held no shelter. Starvation was gnawing, and the food in their conversation was boiling hot. They could do nothing else than use their powers for surviving. They built a muddy hut with the overturned boats as a roof, and there they lay upon rocks and dirt in rotting sleeping bags, filthy as pigs, and tried to pass time away. The suffering broke them down. Nobody was healthy, but Macklin pretended to be well so that he could tend to those who were near death. He and McElroy were the only ones who had something to do, and they shared a kind of worry that they didn't need to talk about. They could discuss it simply with their pale eyes, sitting with ill men. And Macklin would never forget. Frostbitten and rheumatic the men lay, weak and faltering. Rickenson had a heart attack, Hudson lost his mind. Blackborough, who used to be so game and nimble, had gangrene in his foot and was close to leaving. Macklin shivered as he remembered the amputation in the dirt, and the sound of the cut-off toes falling into the tin. He shivered and shuddered in his memories, but he knew that the risk had saved the boy's life. And there was Wilde, with a heavy leadership on his shoulders, just like now. He held their spirits up, kept optimism in their breasts. He shone as warm as the lantern on the Endurance, before she was crushed and sank with her dreams to the bottom of the sea. And there was Hussey with his banjo. There were plays and songs. They were nearly dead, but they were alive. They would never give up. Macklin looked at them where they were sitting round the dinner table on board the Quest, among his new friends, the old comrades. He looked at those that he always would remember, those with whom he'd shared something that nobody else could understand. He saw yesterday's faces in today's faces, like reflected images from the old in the mirrors of their eyes, like scars that wouldn't disappear. They had all got older, and were other men now, but inside their chests they would always carry the same thing as he did himself. That comforted him. There was MacLeod, with grey strands in his beard. He had never listened when Macklin disagreed with his superstitions. Beside him was Green, whom Macklin had taken care of after a collapse on Elephant Island. Kerr sat opposite of him, and perhaps he was still annoyed by the empty space in his mouth, where the tooth once was that Macklin had to pull that one time so long ago. Hussey beside him had sung songs about Macklin, and together with Macklin, and kept his spirits up. And McElroy, by whose side Macklin had worked with the men and the dogs during such a long time, sat next to him. Wilde in the middle had always listened and understood, and had forced him to survive. Worsley, at his side, had navigated the boats to their rescue. They were the old comrades who sat on board the Quest, eating dinner with him in that very moment, a fair evening in Antarctica. It was them, but only them. 20 were missing. 20 were missing, even though the sense of them lay resting in the air forever. Boiled seal bones, without taste and without nutrition, was their dinner that day. It was the only thing they had to be happy about that day. It was the only thing that could comfort them that day. They couldn't know that the day, the 30th of August, would become a day of celebration for the rest of their lives. That day was the day that Macklin would remember the longest and the most intensely. He remembered, and he smiled. The words were clear. They filled the muddy hut and stuck themselves into the men's thin chests. "A ship!" And then it was all over. Tumbling over each other, falling, they threw themselves out from the hut and ran to the beach, intoxicated with happiness. The sight made them break into simmering joy. The sight made them shake and shiver and slip in happiness. Dizziness rose in their heads. There was a ship in the horizon. Macklin pulled off his jacket and hoisted it like a flag on an oar, as high as his weak arms could hoist it. But he didn't need to. They had already been seen, and the ship came closer to the shore. But happiness wasn't as great then as when a rowing boat was put into the water and they saw a man get into it. They saw that man's silhouette, and instantly they recognized him. They saw that man, and their spirits took wing. Not only they alone had survived, Shackleton had survived, and he had saved their lives. Macklin remembered what he had heard him say. "If I can't cross the continent, I make sure to bring all my men back alive." He had done it. Shackleton was invincible. On deck, Macklin was standing, seeing how Elephant Island disappeared in the distance. His jacket still flapped in the wind on the gale-swept beach. Their few belongings still lay among the stones. The island disappeared, leaving them, and he didn't think that he would ever see it again.